Hi everybody, my name is Hannah, this is Pepper and Pine, and I have a physics lesson to share with you today. We're working through our Live Education Waldorf curriculum, and this is the Introduction to Physics main lesson block. This is going to cover heat, light, and sound. Now this second lesson is going to be a religious-inspired lesson, and I have printed off some verses in the Qur'an in order to include for this lesson. For this lesson, I'm going to be using my color pencils. These are Lyra color pencils, and I actually switch midway and I include some chalk pastels as well. We're using our main lesson books. These measure 9.5 inches by 12.5 inches, and each page is separated by an onion skin. Sometimes I leave this in and I use it as part of our lesson, and mostly I remove it so that we can have a 2-page spread. So I'm reviewing some of these verses that I want to include, and you can find all of the verses that we have used as well as some thoughts and notations about this lesson and how to make it religious on the blog post that accompanies this video, and you can find the link to that blog post in the description box below. So I'm going to begin by adding a tree on the right side of this illustration of this page, and then a stormy sky above. And on the opposing page, I'm going to do an ocean scene with clear skies. And I'm trying to, and also include actually a couple of birds and some bees, because we are trying to include this different sounds of nature. And so there are the sounds that animals make, or that waves make, or rain, or thunder, or earthquakes. And I'm including these different elements so that we can talk about the different sounds that are made in nature, but then to also include some religious aspects to this is to pull the verses from the Qur'an that actually speak about these different natural phenomenon. And what I love about including those verses is that we also chose to include verses that talk about how all of the things on this planet praise Allah, and those sounds are not ones that we hear. So there are the sounds that we do hear. We hear the rustling of the leaves on a tree, or we hear the raindrops falling, or the thunder. All of those sounds are those elements praising Allah in the way that they were created. And those are the things that we can hear. But there's all the praises that these molecules, these trees, these elements, the angels, the jinn, all of them that do praises that we cannot hear, we've included those verses for us as a reminder of the things that we do hear and that we do see, and the things that we don't hear and that we don't see, and yet in their creation is their praise of Allah. So we're adding these religious elements to this lesson, and I really love adding in the things that we don't hear and that we don't see as part of this lesson, because these first few lessons are about heat and sound and light. And light is what allows us to see, and sound is what we hear. And so those two senses, to remember that there are things that we do not see and that we do not hear, and yet they do continue to praise Allah. I love that juxtaposition between what we can see and what we cannot see, and what we can hear and what we cannot hear. So here are the ayahs that I'm going to add to this 2-page spread. And now on the previous page, I did use a Sharpie, which did bleed through the page a little bit. And I found that in this case, I sort of needed to do the same thing too, because you couldn't see very well if I used a fountain pen. And so even when I worked on the lighter page, I still ended up having to use a Sharpie, which did bleed through a little bit to the previous page. I hope that you enjoyed this look at our physics lesson and how we've included our religion into this lesson. Don't forget to check out the blog post that accompanies this video for more information, as well as those religious resources. And if you'd like to see how we're homeschooling on a daily basis, you can find me on Instagram at Pepper and Pine.